Okay, welcome everyone to the release planning for the Goldeneye release and the H release. And a bit of a Groundhog Day here. Apologies to everybody. We're having more problems with the Hangouts and the links. Hopefully we'll get that fixed for the next one. Okay, goals for this meeting are to review the plans for the G and H releases in May and August. And some of the more general goals are helping people with shared interests connect, planning for dependencies, understanding the load of integrations we're going to have, getting everyone on the same page, and providing context for our sprint planning. Schedule for Goldeneye is we have 3 sprints. Bring this up to May 13th when feature integration should be complete, and a reminder that we want to do integrations early and often so that we don't have large integrations at the end of the cycle. And then we'll start the RC build process last 2 weeks of May, heading towards releasing Goldeneye. Okay, I don't think Luca was online, so we'll move to platform. So is it going to be?
Is Madan is on now or no?
Yeah, I'm online.
So okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll let you speak to the other one. Let me speak on the first one, on the first item. So for Goldeneye, the idea here is to speed up the build. We've been noticing that our builds have been increasing in time as our code base grows, and we've recognized that we're doing a lot of redundant work in terms of building stuff that does not need to be built. And to that effect, to preempt that, we're going to migrate from Maven to Bug. There are other tools to do this. We could consider those, but some preliminary investigation that Brian did seems to indicate that Bug seems to be the best suited for the job and gives us the most flexibility. So the idea is to develop this system in parallel with the existing build system in the Goldeneye release, and then hopefully at the end of the Goldeneye release we should be able to deprecate the Maven build altogether. So this should not result in any interruptions for developers. And then for the H release, let me at least mention, I'll let Madame elaborate. The idea here is to separate the current networking core into 2 pieces. One that comprises of a distributed applications platform, which is a generic in nature, has nothing to do with networking per se. And then the network-specific part, which provides the network control core. And I'll let you take it from here, Madame, if you want to add anything to that.
Sure. I actually have a related item in under the core piece as well. So maybe we can move to the next slide.
Okay.
So as far as core is concerned, the plan is to make incremental enhancements in Goldeneye release. So some of them are listed here. So in Falcon, all the dynamic clustering functionality has been introduced as a parallel service, which is disabled by default. This was done so that we don't interfere with the different development activities that are ongoing for ONS and things like that. So for someone who wants to use dynamic clustering, they just need to enable storage manager, and that is how it can be done in the Falcon release. In Goldeneye, we want to make the new storage manager as the default. So what we will have is dynamic clustering and the related functionality that was introduced will be available as the default in Goldeneye, and we want to make that happen. And also there will be associated bug fixes and enhancements as issues are discovered, because this is a brand new feature. So we will tackle those things. The other things that we plan to do are things that come up, demands that new use cases bring. As far as primitives are concerned, we will enhance existing primitives and add new primitives as required. An example here is Aaron is working on a pre-map primitive. This is useful for providing a map abstraction where ordering of keys is important. we have seen a need for this in the context of uh, network config store, where there is a tree-like structure in how the data is organized. Finally, I want to make sure uh, we are using appropriate high-level primitives in the code base instead of low-level constructs like doing direct RPC calls between instances. There are a few places where we essentially do low-level message passing, and that is something that I would like to avoid. So we will identify those areas and fix them as needed. And a lot of these are areas where the community can help. So appropriate stories will be created, and hopefully we'll find contributions from the community for these areas. Um, looking forward and looking beyond Goldeneye, I think as Thomas mentioned, there will be some work that we will do to facilitate a standalone reusable distributed core. This is something that is a standalone component that provides the distributed core functionality as well as the application platforms. And we would like to make this as independent as possible from the existing networking functionality. And also there will be some work that I foresee for supporting off-platform client notifications. Uh, right now, as long as you're running on the same cluster, you get notifications, and we provide guarantees. But the story for clients that run off-platform and the kind of notifications they get, it is not fully baked, and we want to fix that. And also there will be some work to support iterators. For example, if you have a data structure like map with lots of elements in it, today we support operations that get the entire keys or the entire values. This is not a scalable operation if the size of the map grows. What we need is a more of a streaming style operation that can iterate over the individual entries in the map. And also there will be some work to support the filtering of notifications. Today, if you register yourself as a listener, you basically get everything. And you filter actually at the sink and not at the source. Uh, to, to reduce the amount of notifications that get dispersed from the source, I think it would be better to have a filter that you can register at the source so that we can filter notifications at the source as well. So these are some of the things that I foresee be working on in the H release. For Goldeneye, I will be freeing up some of my time to to help with the northbound effort. So that's all I got on the core side.
Okay. Thanks, Bud. All right, Brian.
Sure. So there's a couple of things that I have targeted for the next few releases. For Falcon, we're going to have an initial implementation of the existing intent framework on top of flow objectives for a number of a small subset of the intents, specifically the packet intents that are required for SDNIP. So our first task in Goldeneye will be to validate the flow objective compilers with SDNIP and hopefully some hardware, and also to deprecate the flow rule compilers as we gain confidence in the flow objective compilers. We'd also, on the intent domain side, like to continue to document the approach, find use cases, and validate the APIs that we've already put in the code base, and then provide a few examples, including a segment-routed domain and a packet optical intent domain. Looking out in the future, we'd like to continue the intent domain work such that we can have multiple domains under the control of a single cluster, and hopefully discover if the existing intent framework can be superseded or deprecated.
Okay. Patrick, you have a question?
Yeah. The question is about the previous one. So I'm kind of the slow. Sorry about this. I saw you want separate from the first page. You see you separate the application and the core, right? So do you have any plans and what should be kept in the core and what should be separate? Do you have such a
provide a brief answer. Think of Karaf provides a dynamic applications platform for a single node. What we would like to do is provide essentially a layer on top of that provides distributed variant of this without any networking related stuff in it.
Without any. Okay. So the VPNs and the source function chaining potentially
your understanding of this different than he's explaining it.
Yeah.
So you're thinking of applications as an ONOS application separate from the core. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about ONOS as a shell for running networking functions.
Oh, okay.
Or as a shell for running other distributed utility stuff. Two different things.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks.
You're sitting in the perfect spot.
I am.
Okay, anything else on Northbound? Anyone?
There's some resource work that'll be done on the next slide.
Okay, Joe?
Hi. We are developing a new resource subsystem for last 2 releases. We are looking at the Goldeneye release. The first thing to do is removing all resource subsystem completely. We still have a dependency on link resource services, which is all resource subsystem. That means removing the dependency from constraint interface that is only users for all the resource subsystem. And after that, resource classes under resource package, current classes under resource package will be completely removed, and then classes under new resource package will move to resource package. The second thing is the things bigger than the first thing. So currently, the resource allocation or the allocation are scattered mainly in the compiler implementation side. But the ideal way to allocate or deallocate resource is doing that in intent framework side. So we will tackle this kind of things. But these things might impact current intent API, so we need to sync up with the previous intent activities. That's it for my side. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
So the question here is remove the dependencies from a constraint interface.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose to do this? Why we decouple this?
Constraint interface has a dependency to the old resource subsystem. So, but the direction for resource subsystem is to remove old resource subsystem and replace with new one. So that impact to the constraint interface.
I don't quite follow. So the Thomas and Ali, you guys know about this? Why we need to remove the dependencies from the constraint interface? So based on my understanding, SDLs. So the interface normally we are tied to the link link resource is we basically configure the services on the interface, right? Because the interface and the link is one-on-one. So after you remove the dependencies, if my understanding is correct, they will try to build something virtual links or something decoupled with the interface. If that is happening, the first question is where do you apply the QoS for this and all those things. Currently, we apply the services on the interface. So I don't know if my understanding is correct.
Yeah, I would take it offline, Patrick, this we get
Okay.
lengthy discussion. This one is entirely just about deprecating the old style resource reservation with the new style resource reservation. This is about resource reservations.
Okay.
And essentially tracking.
So the interface here is, as part of the ONOS API, we have a constraint interface object, and the methods on that object explicitly take references to link resource service. And so this is about removing those from that method call.
Okay. Okay.
And moving them to the new stuff.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Shel. All right. Southbound. Oh,
Can you refresh the slide, please?
I have to get out of this, I
I
guess.
think we just escaped from this and
Okay, and now go back to. Oops.
Better break it for you.
I think we should be able to just switch.
You think?
Just switch to the other thing that was being shared. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some netconf JUnit test suites that Happiest Minds will contribute for Goldeneye. As far as things that we're going to do here, there's some OpenFlow subsystem stuff that I want to improve because they're kind of getting all, there's spider webs in there. And so those things are getting bad. There's also a thing that I've been thinking about for a long, long time that I want to do, that I've spoken about quite often, is the command CLI. So kind of deprecate all our bash script and have a Python-based CLI that allows you to build, deploy, manage your ONOS instances without having the need of having the right shell or the right environment variable set or the right this or the right that, because it's getting a bit unwieldy at this point, especially in deployment scenarios where you can't tell people to use bash. It's just not cool. You can tell them to use Python though with bash. There's Goldeneye. In Goldeneye, I'd like to get also OpenFlow 1.4 support in. Now, whether we actually make use of the new features of 1.4 or not, will come in as time goes on, as usual, like as the use cases make demands for them. But it's good to have a little head start and have the wire protocol in place, and when people want to use it, they can. Similarly, for the H release, OpenFlow 1.5 support, I doubt anybody will need any of those features, but again, it's relatively simple to provide support for it. It's not that complicated. It's low overhead, and it's not damaging. And so the day someone comes up and says, "I have a 1.5 data plane, which controls supports it?" we can say ONOS does. And also some work that Carmelo has been doing. I'd like to also pull in at some point some BMV2 or /P4 initial support into that. There's going to be another slide about this because Carmelo's been mostly working on this, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But that's about it for Southbound. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes? Wow.
So the
1.4
OpenFlow 1.4 only supports only add the, compared to the 1.3, add the optical port. That is only a difference. So if we support this, what's the use case? Is use these features in the ONOS.
It's a useless feature?
Use the optical port.
What are you using?
So you support the 1.4
What's
basically.
the use case?
Use case.
What's the use
For
case?
optical ports?
Yeah.
What do you do with optical stuff?
Equal.
Okay.
Yeah, E-cord in general, right?
Okay. So the 1.5 support OTN. So the 1.5 support OTN. What's the use case for the OTN?
Yeah, E-cord and stuff.
ePort. Okay.
E-cord, they all use that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, my point is, my point is not like, oh, we need to support this immediately. It's that one day, someone's going to come along and say, I need these features because I have a device that speaks this 1.4, 1.5 support. So it's better to have it in place. And then like we did for 1.3, right? We had kind of like a sparse implementation of 1.3, but we had this full wire protocol support, but we had a sparse implementation of it. And as we moved along, we added the implementation.
Okay. Yes.
I think that's okay, right?
I just try to figure out what the use case. The use case 1.4.
Hey, actually, I
It's
one
another
question.
change.
Question is now we are using the OpenFlow to implement all the OpenFlow specific like protocol stuff. So if we update to like OpenFlow 1.4, 1.5, then this kind of OpenFlow J library also need to be updated as well. Like Loxy
So the
stuff.
OpenFlow J library that you're talking about is Loxy.
Yes, yes.
Loxy it's essentially Loxy is generated code. The OpenFlow J part that you see is generated from the IDL that you specify.
Yes.
Right? So the library itself doesn't have to change. I mean, the library itself doesn't have to change. The code that it generates changes.
Yes.
Right? And there's more of it. That's it.
So in that case, we need to have our own like Loxy to update the
No,
Loxy.
this time the problem. I've been trying for a long time to push our changes back upstream so that we don't have to have our own fork of Loxy. But every time I try to do that, more changes come into our Loxy.
Oh.
So it's getting a little hard. But ideally, so the 1.4 wire protocol support is already in Loxy is already in the upstream Loxy.
Oh.
I pushed that up several months ago. And 1.5 needs to be done. And then hopefully at some point we'll be able to live off their branch and not live off our branch, but I don't know. It's also that they don't provide a Maven artifact, they don't provide a whole bunch of stuff. So it's complicated.
Just a quick note, we should probably move the ONOS command CLI to the platform.
Yeah, I didn't know where it fit.
Okay, let's go. I will go to the platform. I mean,
I didn't
it
wanna-
doesn't matter for here, but the reason I brought it up was also I'd like to ask a question. So you're specifically referring to the 8 scripts that we have for the runtime, for the deployment time scripts. I think that would be a good idea, definitely, not to have those dependent on Bash. But are you also including in this the test time and the build time scripts too?
Like
Because we have many more of those, right? So we have 8 runtime scripts, like the ONOS service, secure SSH, JP enabled and stuff like that. Or do you include in your scope for this work? You also include the test and build related.
So the build I'd like, right? The build I'd like to include in there. Somehow, I'm not entirely sure. I've been doing some research on the side to find if there is a Python library that's able to nicely interpret and parse Maven. But since we're moving to Bug now,
Yeah, I wouldn't. So I wouldn't. Okay.
I wouldn't burn time on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was just like to see how I could make it. And the other thing is, there's other stuff like the REST APIs, all that stuff can be accessible from within that CLI.
Okay.
Right. So you don't have to. Or one, you don't have to curl for a lot of things.
Sure.
And secondly, you wouldn't have to use a bash command. You can just construct your object right there and then.
I get it. I was just wondering. I understand the benefits. I was just wondering what you had intended in the overall scope.
I mean, the scope of this thing is going to grow as time goes on.
Okay,
Provide base functionality,
but
with value at some point.
But we should probably then, if I may suggest, we should start with converting the production runtime 8. We have I think 8 or so scripts, something like that. Let's say 10 scripts. We should convert those first. Would be my suggestion. So that way, basically, at runtime, you don't require any bash.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible. I mean, I had a different idea, but we can talk about it.
We can take it offline.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ollie. Okay, Simon.
Okay, so the big item for Goldeneye is basically enhancing the topology view so that we can support this notion of regions, which will allow us to basically view and navigate hierarchical network structures. So you could, for example, start at a world view, total view of your network, but then select a region and then kind of drill into that region, and the UI will basically zoom into that area and show you the underlying structure of the network under that. And so this is basically to support the the new idea of regions and of federated or hierarchical ONOS. So that's going to be the big one. We have work to do with in terms of adding moving timeline charts. For example, monitoring the load on cluster instances or other types of data like that. And of course, we're also going to look at working with a graphics designer to help us smarten up the look and feel of the UI. In terms of H release, I'm not totally sure what should really go here, but I would note that over time we have had some really good ideas trickling into the backlog. And so I'd like to at least start addressing some of those. For example, one is the idea of some of the table views have table rows that have a lot of information in them, like the flows. But the viewer may want to just kind of see a summary of those and only expand to the detailed view when he needs to. So that's just one of several examples. That's pretty much all I have to say at this point.
Okay. Thanks, Simon. Okay, fabric virtualization. Which slide is this?
Oh, sorry, that's me. So for the virtualization, it's been on hold since Drake, and the idea here is for Goldeneye is to resurrect that. Now let me clarify that there are many different ways one can do virtualization. The specific virtualization that we decided to pursue in Drake was a hypervisor style network fabric virtualization, which is partially related to what OVX does, but also a little bit different, in a sense that one can construct virtual networks which comprise of virtual devices and virtual links, which are essentially slices and splices of the underlying network. It's a fabric virtualization rather than an overlay virtualization. Where it's different, it's that it's not the northbound API that's accessible from these or available on these virtual networks is not a low-level one like OpenFlow, but it's a high-level one where basically it exposes ONOS northbound API. You can interact with these networks with the same mechanisms you can interact with the underlying network, but with a narrow view. So that means you have your regular network graph, you have your regular flow objectives, and flow rules, and intents and things of the sort. So there's a subset of the services that are available on the underlying network are also available on each of the individual virtual networks. So that's the approach that we're pursuing. There's other approaches. So the idea for Goldeneye is to document this and how it behaves and clarify it a little bit so that there is understanding of what this is trying to do and what are its benefits and limitations. But at the same time also is to resurrect some of the existing implementations from Drake, and this is what we have some our contributors or partners from CNR helping us do that, where that some of the work is already actually started. And the idea is here to complete distributed store implementation, provide a CLI so that we can have at least a way to test this and build networks. And then provide an initial implementation of a virtual network provider, just one, to test out the concepts and to adjust the APIs. And then only then we will do the REST API after things have settled. And then for the H release, the idea here is if the intent rework is ready, we notice that there appears to be a lot of synergy, and the idea here is to rehost the virtual network provider on top of the intent domain or provide an alternate one. That's a little bit foggy, so that's why there's not that much detail on it. Right now, the primary focus is to move virtual network functionality in Goldeneye forward.
How did you plan to do slicing?
So it's slicing as in, it's not slicing like flow-space slicing, but as in basically slicing the pieces of infrastructure. So let's say you have two devices, device A and device B, and you can decide that you can, out of this you can distill a virtual device that comprises of 2 ports from device A and 3 ports from device B.
No, I understand that. That's all I'm saying. Obviously, that's the OVX model.
Yes.
But what I'm asking is, well, there's 2 issues. Right? One, we have a requirement for slicing.
Slicing is in terms of flow space.
In terms of flow space slicing. Okay. Secondly, there is depending on the implementation of the virtual network provider, you can do more or less of the OVX style virtualization. Okay, because the way in which you virtualize your data plane informs directly what you can and cannot realize on your virtual network. Because if you use, say, point-to-point tunnels to isolate your traffic, right, then all of the core of your network now becomes invisible. The only points you can actually, the only elements in your network that you can actually coalesce or splice are the edge nodes. Because their edge nodes are connected to real infrastructure. So you run into these issues. So like there is a dependency between the process in which process by which you virtualize and what you can actually.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the first bullet, is probably to just document it so that we can hash out some of these, the specifics of the approach and some of its caveats and limitations.
Okay. That's it?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas.
Let me just quickly note, we still hope to have Sienna help us with this.
Okay, Sona. Is Shin-san going to talk about this, or who's going to talk about this? Don't know.
Maybe hands-on.
I don't remember seeing.
So one small sort of problem we've been running into is there's a number of people that are sending messages in that the Hangout is full, and there's going to be this problem for a number of slides coming up.
Okay.
So perhaps people that have already presented, maybe even including myself, should switch over to the viewer portal so that there is space in the presenter Hangout.
Yeah, that would be great. So maybe Simon and a few folks could do that. So is Shin-san online as a viewer, do you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Can you see the Hangout as a viewer, Thomas, and see who's
Okay, no, I'm off of it specifically to save slots.
Okay.
So I was not on it. So if you swipe over to
But as a viewer, would you?
As a viewer, I'm not seeing.
Still pick a slot?
No, no. So if as a viewer, I don't know who the other viewers are.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move forward.
Finish the slides.
Can we? Yeah. Okay. Subin.
Yes, so on QA point of view, I just heard a few new changes coming down the line that I think on QA point of view we need to handle with urgency. So that's why I traded off a few items from Goldeneye to H. In essence, QA, we look at 3 areas. First of all, the new feature coverage. So the first 2 items, we're looking at moving the build from Maven to Bug, and that might take some effort on, to make sure that it moves smoothly in GoldenEye for all the testing. And then if intent overflow objective is not totally transparent on the northbound API, then we need to do some refactoring of many of our test cases. And we hope that if we can make it transparent as a default way of running intent, then there will be less effort. On the new test suite, we were planning for security mode performance testing, but it looked like it's not a whole lot of urgency. That's why we're pushing it. Actually, that one we want to push it to H. There's a mistake on the slide. And then we want to build a OBS TTP test suite that will remain on GoldenEye. And if we have some bandwidth, we want to address a few existing bugs on performance that's been long overdue a little bit. For example, when we start pinging a large topology, the topology disappears, and I wouldn't think that's the urgent thing to solve in Falcon, but it's something that we want to look in the GoldenEye and H. Next slide, please. Then the second area we want to address is strengthen some of the existing CHO HAM performance testing. For CHO, we will be implementing the chaos monkey style testing so that we can inject more events in a more flexible way. And the HA will be focusing on making some scenarios for the dynamic clustering and test all the different scenarios to make sure that they are working as expected. And we will spend some time that is delayed from taking over the SDN IP testing that was planned on Falcon that we will move to GoldenEye. And the next slide, please.
Okay.
And the third area we want to address is something to help the community and help make sure that we have support from contribution from the community. So one thing to do is that we want to refactor our sample test script to show people how the right way to do it, and that will also encompass the new changes either in the intent part of the change and the build part of the change. And the second item we want to work on is to make our test fixture as a Docker image so that we can include all the dependencies in it instead of asking people to install dependencies for testing to make the testing work. The third area is something that we've been working with Huawei Criterion and basically Huawei and Criterion at the moment, and it's to get the IPv6 test suite completed and get the Huawei VTN testing and BGP-IOS testing merged. And that's our goal to how we will work with the community. And those are the.
Thanks.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Simon. Yep. Refresh. All
I
right.
think if you just go slide over and then exit out presentation knowledge. Yeah.
The one before?
One before.
Yeah, one before. Okay, very high level view of the deployments. So of course I want to migrate everything to ONOS Falcon, right? We are always, as you know, one release back because I need to stay on the maintenance branch. So that's the goal. Then flow integration between intent framework and flow objective is coming. So the idea is to move finally lots of deployments to OpenFlow 1.3 and use pipelines. Multiple apps on top of ONOS. This has been a goal since a long time, and I really want to start to deploy something like that. Probably the first one would be AM Lite in a very close time. The first two applications would be SDNIP and VPLS, which would be so layer 2 and layer 3 connectivity to research network using ONOS. Africa, this is a geographical thing, right? We cover lots of continents, but we miss Africa. So I'm trying to reach some guys in South Africa, and let's see what's going on. And then as the improvements for this, I will need probably development efforts, which I'm still not sure we will be able to have. So let's see. But for sure, I would like to cover the first 3 or 4 points.
Nice. Nice. Africa would be great.
Yeah.
Iceland, too. Don't forget Iceland.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay. Okay. OpenTAM. So I'm not sure if anyone's online for OpenTAM. Anyone there?
The slide isn't updated yet.
Oh, that was from the old.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right. Mateo-Bill. I guess that means Mateo is not online. He wants Bill to do it. Bill to do it. Okay, so we'll move on. So, Federation. Okay. Patrick, is this yours?
The Gaurav is online. Gaurav?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi everyone. Okay. So for Yang in ONOS, as a part of G release, first thing is like we would like to take up the advanced Yang utils. So basically we started the Yang util in the F release, and the basic piece we have already completed. The advanced piece, like some of the advanced Yang construct, we will be doing here, and that work will be completed in G release itself. Another thing what we will be taking up is the NBI REST framework. This framework basically intend to automate the URI registration and the codec implementation, JSON codec implementation. So as of now, like each and every app used to implement their own codecs for the JSON, that load of the app can be reduced, and the app development can become faster using the same. And to demonstrate this, we will be having one sample L3 VPN application. This application will demonstrate the use of the Yang util, as well as it will be using the NBI based REST framework for the automation of the codec and all. And for this, we will be making the required changes in all the external NBI interfaces wherever applicable. So this is all the scope of the Yang project in G release.
Hi Gaurav, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
I was hoping that we could see also some southbound in the implementation that you already have, because you already have, let's say, at least the parser for the JSON that you have in the Yang utils, for the Yang, sorry, in the Yang utils. And what I'm hoping is that we can build together, or with your team, also the automatic XML generation in the southbound. Can it be done through your tool?
Yes, definitely it can be done. Is it Andrea?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So Andrea, definitely it can be done. So if you want, we can add that as a part of our G release activity. So we can collaborate, and you can let us know what support is required. We will definitely support you on that perspective.
That would be really good, because we need the Yang in the southbound also in order to automate the configuration of netconf devices.
Okay, I understand, and that is very important. I agree. So for that, whatever is required, we can, I think, discuss maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow after the meeting, and then we can coordinate on that front.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Is that it, Gaurav? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is this an old slide, Patrick?
The Sarab? Sarab, are you online? He was trying to log in, but
Yes. Yes, I'm online. Yes.
he's online. Okay.
Yeah. So can you go to SFC? So I'll be presenting SFC.
SFC. So there's probably next slide.
Right.
Yeah. So in Goldeneye delivery, we'll be adding some SFC statistics for all the SFC resources, and you're also planning for a GUI for viewing all the port chains available. What is the path it has taken, and how many SFs, and what is the ordering of the SF? These details. Also, we would like to implement tie-break logic at the classifier when multiple flows are matched for a packet. And in this release, we want to interface with the SFC proxy. So, so we want to support SFC unaware VMs. So with implementing SFC proxy, which can do the SF functionality and then do the to and fro to the SFC unaware SFs. So this will be the planned delivery for Goldeneye.
Okay. We have OSPF now. We have to have ISIS. Okay.
This was last time.
So is Drew online?
This was from last time.
Oh, this was. Sorry.
This is old.
It's old. Is this also old?
So he should be online.
Hello?
Yeah, sure, he should be fine. That's true. Satish.
Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is regarding the SDN transition solution of using PCCC. Okay. So in this, the scope of the work is we'll be developing the first as a stateful PCE where we'll have the knowledge about all the paths. So we will have better optimization. So and after that, we also plan to support PCCC. This is basically PCE as a central controller. So here we are targeting to instead of using the completely remove the control part from the network and have this control in the controller, where using this we will distribute the labels and also we'll manage the resources like bandwidth and the other aspects when we're creating the path. Okay, so this is the idea over here. And with respect to PCCC, again we have some the couple of modes we plan to support. One is the basic PCCC, so that is basically using removing the signaling from the network and having it hit the controller. And also we are planning to support PCE with SR, segment routing case. So where we'll be pushing the, instead of pushing the local labels, we'll be pushing the label stack similar to the segment routing, but the only difference is we'll be using the PCEP as a protocol to communicate between the device and controller. Okay, so these are the scope for PCE and PCCC as part of Goldeneye. And as part of earlier backlogs, we also plan to extend the topology part. So we'll be using the current the delivered Falcon feature of projection method of device and links, basically the subsystems. So we'll be using that driver framework to project it in L3 format. So that is also as part of this work. So basically all these three together we'll use it to do the PCCC as an SDN transition solution. Next slide. Yeah, it's about the same what I explained before. It's multiple variations of PCCC in this. So this is all about PCE and PCCC. And next slide. Okay, this is with the extension to the existing work which you had done in Falcon release. And earlier we had a flow spec which is mainly for our data path. Okay, so to control the data path. So in that we can control only the incoming packets to divert it and other stuffs. But there was one new solutions which is for extending the existing flow spec, that is road policy distribution. This is basically play with the BGP key attributes like MED and local preference and AS path. So basically we want to build an intelligent subsystem in the controller so that it automatically provision the agents to push these rules to modify the BGP routes in the network. So it's basically kind of a monitoring and changing. For example, if one of the between the two AS, if through one AS, if you get a lot of packets, or maybe in case of attack or in any scenario, so if we want to change that traffic and take the new path. So in that case, we want to change the incoming path to the new BGP speaker. So we'll be pushing the rules to modify these key parameters, so to reduce the priority or preference in this case. Okay, so that was the reason like why we are proposing this with the existing extension. Basically we'll be adding another 2-3 this also will be using the flow objective subsystem to push these rules into the network. Yeah, that's it with respect to PC and flow spec extension. You guys have any queries on this?
We've discussed a lot of this in the TFC meeting.
Okay, thanks, Satish.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, is this Andrea?
I wonder if you want to.
Yes. I take only a couple of points for the Goldeneye release, because we found out trying to implement some alarm provider for the netconf devices that the alarm provider that is currently in the master is somehow not completely coherent with the infrastructure that we have in place, especially for providers and the components and services. So we want to rework that, and reworking that we would allow multiple alarm providers, and if needed, also reworking a little bit of the fault management app that was provided with the alarm providers in order to support multiple providers. And this could also have changing on the SNMP provider, because also that has some deficiencies in the architecture implementation that is already in place right now. And regarding H releases, I think we can cover this all in Goldeneye, so I didn't put anything for that in H.
Okay. All right, thanks, Andrea.
Okay, so here's my part. For the control plane manager, for Falcon release, I implement most of the monitoring, control plane monitoring like features already. So now we can monitor control messages and various system metrics like CPU and so on. And then in Goldeneye release, I plan to visualize all of the monitored control plane matrices by using some like dynamic charting framework. And in order to do that, I think we need to implement a new like charting framework for ONOS. And the second part is now all the matrices is logged in a single like instance, and in the J release, I plan to back up all the like matrices to the centralized monitoring server like Ganglia. And in order to do that, to implement some kind of plugin to provide to interact with this monitoring server. And also, I think this is the right time to document all the control plane manager. And in order to do better master management, I think I would like to implement another like event condition action framework to ease of use the kind of event and condition action and so on. And for each release, I plan to implement the control plane load aware like motion measurement and so on. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, John. Carmelo.
Good morning, all. So the idea, in this case, to pave the way for programmable data planes in ONOS, specifically for features like protocol independence and the possibility to configure or reconfigure the forwarding pipeline of a device at runtime, which are not so explicitly supported in ONOS right now. When we're concerned with the deliverables for Goldeneye, the idea is to first bring self-bound support for the P4 reference soft switch, namely the behavioral model version 2, BMV2. Second is to refactor the current traffic selector treatment extension logic that presents some limitation. Implement a parser for a P4 level intermediate representation, that in other words is the JSON representation of a P4 pipeline model, so that we can use this parser to format Thrift API, BMV2 Thrift API calls according to the current pipeline that is deployed on a device. As a fourth point, I would like to design and integrate what I call the ONOS.P4 reference pipeline that allows to implement basic ONOS features like topology discovery, tracking, and so on. And this will be like the starting point for a P4 program that users can extend. And finally, create a tutorial virtual machine to share with the community to better describe the project. And for what it concerns the H release, so the idea is that once we have basic support for P4-based devices, we can start supporting specific P4 use cases. And an idea is to start with the in-band network telemetry. Any questions?
No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is this Mark? Is Mark here? Yes? Okay. All right. And that's Mark. Ping Ping, do you want to go?
Yes. For the SDMP, the Goldeneye release, just some small tasks, no big features. So the move to the new config system and the nightly automatic test on the new branch, and some of the listening port on the standard port 179, and handle some dynamic change like the MAC address. Then disable the link discovery on the external facing switch ports. This is all the tasks we know that before. For the H release, when the new intent framework is ready, I can give the performance test together with the new intent framework for the H release. Yes, this is mainly for the SDN-AP. Can you move on next page?
Okay.
For the M code, for the Goldeneye, we will add several new features. The first is to integrate Fabric, and the second is to connect the Fabric to Internet. Right now, we use a video server to emulate the Internet, but in Goldeneye, we will really connect to the Internet, then let the iPhone to go through M code to the Internet. We need to redesign the MME gateway architecture. Right now, it can't totally fit into the code framework, so it's still use its own so it's still use its own architecture. In Goldeneye, we plan to re-architect that, and although for ONS we implemented the MME gateway service because the architecture we didn't integrate, so in Goldeneye we will integrate. We also support the SR ROV interface, and a billing feature trigger the new run service by the ESON monitor dynamically. This is all the new features. Then for the improvements, We will continue working on improve the BBU peak gateway service and let it 100% automatically booted. Right now, because the legacy device, it can't automatically boot it. And make the entire service chaining can be tear down and bring up. We will implement the service config page inside XOS for each service. And we need to investigate whether and how to integrate with the WSJ, because the peak gateway is also works as the router. We also have another WSJ, so we need to further investigate. This is all for Goldeneye release. For H release, at this moment, I can't give an accurate list what a new feature need to add. So I only list the features for the Goldeneye. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Ping Ping. All right, let's go back here to the rope and rope.
Okay. So a split between the optical work and the E-core, just for clarity's sake. For Goldeneye, I think the biggest is really not a new feature, but a kind of refactoring and sanitization of ONOS core with respect to all the additions we did with optical, and basically move it all out of the core. And then work continues on device models, most notably a new device that we're going to support, an amplifier, and its interfaces. For H, one particularly exciting project is optical link discovery using OSC channel, and with a big question mark, but something that we'd really like to try and push forward is to get a first deployment running, even if it's small, but something operational would be a big win, I think, for the packet optical work. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of community tickets that I put there. One is, you can always find on Jira some starter issues. I would like to ask people here in the team that don't pick up the starter tickets, because it seems some people like them and just take them off and then have to go in and create more.
Doesn't have to go starter tickets?
Yeah, but people here, people that are not starters, that's what I mean.
Right, I'll like stop.
Yeah, stop taking the starter tickets. I think someone else mentioned default management, right, in one of the previews, but this is something I just want to reiterate that is really important for this work. So if no one picks it up, I will take a more active stance on that. And another community thing we can use some help is OpenConfig. So we've taken a kind of superficial look at it. It does not do everything we would like it to do, but maybe by now it does. But even if it doesn't, we would still like to have a little bit, a better plan of how to do that, and maybe add some support for it in ONOS. Next one.
Mark, it was me about the phone management app. We will take a look into it.
Okay, sounds good. And then for eCore, the enterprise core for Goldeneye, we're going to add the remaining connectivity services. And this is not really an ONOS issue, but work a little bit more on the design and the integration of XOS in this whole project. And then for H, we want complete support on white box for the Ethernet edge. And start work on OAM, so operations, administration, and management, to ensure you can monitor and you can see problems when they occur and maybe fix them. And then there's also two issues for community. One is, again, the Jira issues. We might need to split or create a new epic for this. We'll talk about that some more later. And documentation is also a big one. I can definitely use some help. That's it.
Mark, a quick question.
Yeah.
So in the previous page, you see the move the optical model out of the core.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So basically, we added device port, not links, but they could be device and port models. We created those, and we made the core aware of those models, right? And that's really a bad idea if you want to keep the core lean and mean and high performance, right? So what we want to do is have the core just work with the default device models, but have annotations for them that make them optical or microwave or something else, right?
and with a kind of shim layer or projection layer, you call it, you can easily convert between the two. But the core itself does not know it is dealing with something different than the default device models. There's only one simple, network element model for each element that there is out there. Does that make sense?
So does this include the OTN models?
The impact,
OTN.
or what are you asking?
OTN model.
So that's part of that. That's part of that.
Okay.
So for OTN, we also have OTN specific port types.
Yeah.
Every time we introduce like a new technology or maybe not vendor, but say technology specific network element, we need to make the core aware of that, and that's really not a bad, that's a bad thing to do. That's not a path we really want to keep on walking.
Okay.
So we take it out.
So for the phase ones, we do collect the graph, right? The optical and the IP is a global views, right?
Sure.
So are we going to keep that models or we?
Yeah, but that's really a separate issue.
Yes, it's a separate, but I think it's related, right?
It's related, but it's not what I'm working on for the time being.
Yeah. So the idea is to clearly we're going to evolve the core too. There are some core concepts that, for example, are today specific to the optical, for example, like unidirectional ports. That's something actually we may enhance the concept of the core port to be able to support that notion of a unidirectional or bidirectional port, so that we can know at the base level whether this is something that supports bidirectional links or not. But on the other hand, we want to make sure we don't make the model exploded with the specifics of different media and new technologies. And this is what Mark was saying. And for that, we will be using the projection model. But yes, it will be a flat graph. Still continues to be a flat graph. We may provide over time more effective means of filtering that graph and producing subgraphs for certain regions of the network. So the core model will continue to evolve, and but not in a way that will where it will fall victim to exploding data model.
Okay.
It's maintaining the performance of the core. That's the only goal we have here. Everything else is
performance, and to a certain respect, some simplicity and ability to traverse that graph without really getting involved with the details of specific technologies.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Okay. Is Shrikant online? This looks.
It's probably old.
Oh, it says proposed G release.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. About Hido.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Hido. Before I get into the task items, I would like to introduce myself very quickly since it is my first time joining this meeting. I'm a PhD student at KAIST, and I've started working on SM ONOS since ME release with Changwon and my advisor Professor Seung-won Shin and researchers from SRI. Anyway, it's very nice to meet you all, and here are a couple things that we would like to do in the following Goldeneye release. First task is developing automatic security policy extraction tool that automatically extract the required permissions from given application. Currently, this tool can extract ONOS application permissions from single bundled applications using static analysis technique, and we will keep working on this one to further improve this tool. For Goldeneye release, we plan to support multi-bundle applications and also make this tool to extract Java's native permissions and OSGI permissions as well. Also, we are going to patch all the northbound API implementations to tag the code as trusted to reduce security complexity. In ONOS, the northbound API implementations frequently call another northbound APIs, and in security mode, this causes unnecessary permission checks, and this causes the application to have other application permissions that are not really necessary as well. So in Goldeneye release, we would like to wrap the northbound API implementations with privileged action blocks to solve these problems. And can you move on next page? And lastly, we would like to enable automatic security policy enforcement on boot for auto-activated applications. Policy will be enforced automatically only if the policy has been previously reviewed and policy file and application artifact has not been changed. And conversely, automatic policy enforcement and activating application will be refused if policy has not been reviewed or policy file and application artifact has been updated, changed, or compromised. This is some complicated task because we have to design the security mechanism to store the previous review policy file and application artifact for comparing with current things. Also, we have to consider that this has to be done in a distributed environment and some other many corner cases as well. Actually, this work was introduced in the Falcon planning session, but we will have to continue working on this until the Goldeneye release as well. And for the H release, we have a plan to support user-specified security policy for virtual network access control. So that was planned for Goldeneye release and Edge release. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Hido.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have Sonia online or anyone from Fujitsu? No? All right, so that's it. So that's the end of today's release planning session. Any additional comments, questions? Anybody come online that didn't get to deliver their slides? No? Okay. That's it. Thanks, everyone. And many apologies for the difficulty of starting today.
Red button.